Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Lynx Compliance Made Easy webinar that we have today. Lynx, the legal knowledge graph for multilingual compliance services. My name is Martin Kaltenberg. I'm co-founder and CFO of the Semantic Web Company, one of the Lynx partners that you will hear more about in a minute. And I'm very happy to welcome you this morning to our webinar about Lynx, the overall introduction. So a few notes at the beginning. There is a chat that you have in the panel. For this, into this chat, you can paste questions at any time. We will have a question and answering session at the end after the presentations. So just feel free to paste and write your questions into the chat. We're happy to pick them later on. Further on, this webinar is being recorded, and the recording and the slides will be provided to the whole audience. So we'll send out an email to every registrant, but also we will publish it on the Lynx website, recording and slides in around 1 week latest from today. Good. What do we have on the agenda for today? So after my short introduction, I will hand over to Elena Montiel Ponsoda, who is the Lynx project lead from the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, so the Madrid University. She will give us an introduction about the Lynx project, and then I will tell the audience a little bit about the knowledge graph. What is a knowledge graph? What is it good for? What can it be used? Hand over then to Victor Rodriguez Donkel, who is the Lynx scientific manager, also from University of Madrid. And he will tell us more about the details of the dedicated Lynx legal knowledge graph model. So what is inside of our legal knowledge graph? Then we will learn about the 3 pilots of Lynx. They have 3 real-world use cases. One is labor law, the second one is contract management, and the third one is compliance services in geothermal energy. This will be presented by our colleague Christian Sageder, who is managing director of Seibli, who is a legal tech company from Austria in Vienna and Salzburg. And then we go into the final round. We will hear about Lynx Services platform. We call it LYSP, the architecture and the services, a short introduction by my colleague Artyom Revenko, who is Director of Research and Innovation at the Semantic Web Company. And then we open the floor for question and answers. For information, this today is a first webinar of a webinar series. We started today. We will show a slide at the very end for the dates and the times for the next webinars. We start today with an overview. Then we go into the nitty-gritty details in January and February, and then we have a final event in March 2021. But for the beginning for today, we start with a Lynx project overview, and I hand over to Elena to give us an introduction for this. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. Good morning, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to kick off this first webinar of a webinar series by the Lynx Consortium, in which we intend to share with you the main achievements of this project. Yes, thanks for the slide. Yes, that one, Martin. I'll start with the basics, with the fact sheet. So what is Lynx? Lynx is an innovation action funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 Framework Program. And the topic, Big Data Public-Private Partnership, Cross-Sectorial and Cross-Lingual Data Integration and Experimentation, which means that Lynx is also part of the projects under the umbrella of the Big Data Value Association. Its initial duration was 36 months, but has been extended to 40 due to the COVID pandemic, as you can imagine, and the new end date is the 31st of March. There you can also see the estimated project costs, the contribution by the EU, and the project officers in charge of the Lynx project. Next slide, please. Yes, this is the Lynx Consortium in the mountains of Madrid, a team of excellent researchers, developers, scientists, men and women coming from different institutions that I will detail in the next slide. As you can see in this map, most of the partners of the project are located in Europe, and one of our partners is an Israeli company, K Dictionaries, a dictionary data provider. Then we have 3 universities in the consortium, which happen to be 3 Spanish universities, the Universidad Politécnica in Madrid, coordinators of the project, at the University of Zaragoza and the Autonomous University of Barcelona. And also from Barcelona is the next partner in the consortium, the international law firm Quatre Casas. Then from the Netherlands, we have in the team the industrial certification company DMVGL. Then the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence in Berlin. From Latvia, the language technology company Tilde, specialized in machine translation. And then we have two partners from Austria, Cybly, a legal tech company, and Semantic Web company, provider of semantic technologies. And finally, Alpenite, an Italian system integrator company. So 11 partners on the whole. Next slide, please, Martin. Okay, so what have we tried to achieve with this project? So our main objective is to contribute to reduce, overcome the difficulties that companies, law firms in Europe face when immersed in international processes in which legislation and regulations are involved, right? Due to the fact that institutions in the different countries publish their documents and their data sources in different formats according to different criteria and obviously in different languages. Okay, so our efforts have been devoted to create an ecosystem of smart cloud services to better manage compliance, based on a LKG, a legal knowledge graph, which integrates and links heterogeneous compliance data sources, including legislation, case law, standards, documents from private documents from the companies involved, okay, across languages and jurisdictions. So next slide, please. And in order to showcase this, we have orchestrated the different services into 3 pilots. One about contracts, the other one focused on labor law, and finally, the third one on geothermal energy compliance that my colleagues will explain in more detail later in this webinar. So that's it from my side. Now, I hand over to my colleague Martin again.
Thank you very much, Elena, for this very nice introduction of the Lynx project and what we are doing, our aims, the pilots, and so on. We will hear about that in detail by the other colleagues a little bit later. So it's my pleasure now to do a very short introduction in a few minutes about knowledge graphs and about enterprise knowledge graphs. So you can hear this topic very often these days. I think you read about graph technologies a lot, because what's the reason? You see it here. This is a statement by Gartner. It's a top 10 trends in data analytics and data in 2020. And the statement here says, graphs form the foundation of data fabrics and knowledge graphs. Explainable AI, what stands for artificial intelligence, and can accelerate machine learning and artificial intelligence model performance. That means graph technologies are a very important area these days in data analytics and data management. And we'll jump into this right now and see, okay, what's the reason to have these knowledge graphs, or what's the problems that I can solve when I use knowledge graphs or enterprise knowledge graphs? So here you see a list of 6 topics. So first one is an issue that every organization or everyone has when you do data integration. Knowledge graphs provide the possibility to bring unstructured data and structured data together. So we still see around 90% plus of data in organizations being documents like PDF or Word documents, but we see a growing amount of data being really data points, so structured data is coming from sensors, coming from engines, coming from mobile phones, and so on. So the importance of integration, or being able to integrate these both areas of data, is very important. The second one, knowledge graphs are the ultimate linking engine for data management. So it means that we can link together, and we link together business objects that are the same thing, more or less, but all across different data silos. Knowledge graphs automatically generate unified views of heterogeneous and initially unconnected data sources, such as an example here for organizations customer 360 degrees views. So in marketing, you have that very often, or market intelligence, that you want to know everything about a customer. But in a different area, for example, in legal tech or in law, you're interested to see everything around the court or everything around a specific decision that has been made in one or different countries. So when you link data and documents together, then a knowledge graph enables such unified views on a topic or on an object. Knowledge graphs provide reusable data sets to be used in analytics platforms or to train machine and learning algorithms. Also, that is an important thing. I think there was a statement by a colleague from PricewaterhouseCoopers who found out that I think 80% plus of the work that data scientists do these days is around data cleaning, because the quality of data is so different coming from different sources. So a knowledge graph can help there, can harmonize data, interlink it, and it also can be used to train machine learning algorithms, what is a nice thing because sometimes you don't have so much data available, so you can use the models of a knowledge graph also to train your AI systems. Number 5, knowledge graphs help with the dismantling of data silos. And here the term semantic data fabric is mentioned. Step of data warehouse is called data fabrics, where you add knowledge graphs on top, where you have contextualization and meaning inside of your data landscape. I said it before, we want to open up the silos that we have in organizations, that we have across organizations, that we have across jurisdictions, in our case, of different countries and different legal information systems, to make these unified views. And finally, knowledge graphs are an efficient way to work. And this is to work together, so you can interlink also knowledge graphs. So a little bit about the problem. So what is that now? And you see here a nice definition. A knowledge graph contains business objects. So this can be persons, technologies, products, courts, legislations, case law, decisions, and so on. Topics that are closely linked, classified, semantically enriched, and then connected to the existing data and documents. So you have a base model, or you create a base model of the things and the business objects and the objects that you are interested in. And then you can dock more and more documents and data sets from different sources onto your knowledge graph, and thereby enrich and interlink the information inside of your knowledge graph. And a very important statement here, the title says it, knowledge graphs are kind of infrastructure. So you can use and reuse data in a knowledge graph more often than you can do it in usual AI techniques or projects that we see. So usually somebody takes 3 or 4 data sets, integrates them for a dedicated application, and then you do a next application, and then you start this exercise from scratch. So you again take the different data sets, you integrate them, you normalize them and harmonize them. And the knowledge graph is a kind of an infrastructure. So you have an interlinked data landscape available, and on top of this you can implement more and more useful applications without changing the data and integrating the data again and again. You see it in the little example, the difference between also classification, and you see it's a graph, so things are interlinked with each other. And the legal knowledge graph of Lynx also is a kind of an infrastructure, because everything we do, all the pilots are built on top of our legal knowledge graph as the data and document infrastructure. And Victor will tell us a little bit more what is inside. I have to finalize here the introduction into the knowledge graph. So what I would like to recommend, if you're interested in the topic, is a book that has been published, I think, in April 2020 by 2 of my colleagues, Andreas Blumauer and Helmut Nortsch. It's called The Knowledge Graph Cookbook, and you can read here what is inside. It gives a very basic introduction into the topic of knowledge graphs. What is it? How does it work? But also, how to build a knowledge graph. So you see how to get started with your own knowledge graph project. What are the different terms? How can I build that? What do I take into account? What are the bottlenecks, and so on and so forth. And the good news here is you can have the links in the slides, or you have the link in the slides to the free PDF. So it's out there. If you want to have a paperback, you can go also to Amazon and buy it there. But I guess the free PDF is a very useful book or publication to go into this topic. You see there are 20 years of industry experience used for that book. It's around 250 pages, infographics, and interesting. We also have statements and interviews with people, 11 expert interviews that are already using knowledge graphs in their dedicated organization. I hope it was useful to give you a little bit of an introduction. What a knowledge graph is good for, what it is, how it can be built, but also to have further reading because our time today is limited. I will hand over now to my colleague Victor from University of Madrid, who will give us a little bit more depth insight about the legal knowledge graph of Lynx. So what is inside and what can you expect from this? Victor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Martin. And now that Martin has seduced you about using knowledge graphs, I will describe you the legal knowledge graph that has been made for Lynx, for the Lynx project. Knowledge graphs need data models. What I am presenting is the Lynx data model. So the Lynx project revolves about providing homogeneous access to documents from different sources that are not homogeneously identified, described, structured, or annotated. Documents come from different domains: legislation, primary legislation, secondary legislation, case law, judgments of this court, of this another court, standards, industry best practices, etc. Very different documents, very different domains. They come from different jurisdictions. They come in different languages: English, Spanish, German, and they come in different formats. So we really need something that harmonizes this situation. Second, the European Legislation Identifier, ELI, which is the result of a European initiative, is used to identify and describe legislation in the European Union and in some EU member states. Laws are identified with URIs and described with metadata elements well arranged and described by the ELI ontology. But it is only used for EU legislation. And as I said, legislation is just one of the different types of documents we have to deal with. Other official law publishers use other systems to identify and describe their documents. Law plays a major role in Lynx. So we base our legal knowledge graph partly in this ELI. Third, content is structured in different manners: XML, JSON, RDF, and using different formats by different legislation publishers. Some use the Zen MetalX standard, some Comandoso, or its derived LegalDoc ML, or the future AKN4EU. You can see the logos below. But again, these standards do not cover every legislation and every case, and obviously they do not cover other types of documents like best practices, etc. So we need something that covers it all and also is capable of annotating text documents. And for this we have NIF. I will speak about this a bit more, but it's not enough. Next slide, please. So we come across with the idea of a Lynx document, a data structure for the most important entity in the Lynx legal knowledge graph. The Lynx document is one single data structure across jurisdiction, across domains, and covering different types of documents. The data model is well formalized with the LKG ontology, which is open. A computer ontology is an explicit specification of a conceptualization. It's the best way of providing the data model for the semantic web. Third, consistent data structures can be validated with RDF shapes. It means we provide the means for determining if a certain piece of data is correct or not according to our data models, which is a very good feature. Fourth, supporting a beautiful JSON LD for developers to fall in love with it. Developers love JSON, and we support this. And finally, annotated with NIF NLP interchange format, going beyond what the legislation will ever dare to do, but making this super useful insights exploitable. Next slide. In the Lynx project, documents are harvested from different sources and transformed into the data structure that I have just described. After the execution of enrichment workflows, the Lynx document, which is the most important element in the legal knowledge graph, results into an annotated Lynx document. You can see in the figure how it looks like and the main elements in the data structure. Next slide. So, a graph of documents relates in different manners in the legal knowledge graph. In this figure, you see a visualization of provided by the government of Luxembourg. We do not have visual representations because we focus on the results. And you see that a document is connected to many other documents in different ways. One law can amend another, can derogate it, can revoke it, can implement a European Union directive. A law will surely cite others, is modified by others. This graph arrangement of information permits new ways of querying and getting new insights. But in addition to linking documents, we also link documents to terminological data. And this is crucial for providing cross-lingual services, as you have seen. And in the future, we have started, but in the future, we will also link to many other entities, either local entities in our graph or external entities. So we are currently using identifiers from Eurovoc, which is the official European thesaurus, from PermID to identify companies, etc. This legal knowledge graph is a fantastic result of this project. If you want to read more, please follow the link that has been pasted, or that is going to be pasted in the chat, and you can see in your screen. Thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you very much for the introduction. What is inside of the Lynx legal knowledge graph? I especially like your statement that what we have lovely JSON, or that developers can fall in love with. I really like that very much. But it's true, because it makes things easier to use or to be used and to reuse. We go into the next presentation, and I directly hand over to Christian from Cybly to introduce himself, and also then gives us insights into the 3 pilots of Lynx that are there. Yeah, Christian, you will explain them. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. The purpose of the pilots is to evaluate the Lynx platform. In the following, I will give you a short overview of the 3 partners driving the pilots and how they use the platform. We have 3 pilots. The first pilot is from DNVGL, which is the geothermal compliance pilot. DNVGL is that Norsk Veritas is a leading technical advisor for oil and gas industry. They provide integrated services with technical and marine assurance, advisory, and risk management for projects and operations. They also deliver testing capabilities for renewable energies, and in this case, they have this pilot of the geothermal energy. The second pilot is from Curate Casa. It's a labor law use case. And Curate Casa, as already mentioned, is an international law firm. They are located in Barcelona, but have also additional headquarters in Madrid and Lisbon, and also in the main financial areas of Europe, America, Africa and Asia. They have in total more than 900 lawyers. They work for them. So they represent several the largest international companies, and so from this side they have this labor law use case. On the last side, it's the contract use case. This is from us, from Cybly. We are a legal tech company. We are based in Salzburg and Vienna, and we have a legal database with content from Eurolex, Austria, Germany, on a federal and the state levels, and also with decisions and other documents. We provide here already an offering for cross-platform access, and we have already interlinked sources of this law. We also provide process-oriented integrated IT solutions in the area of law, and in this case, this contract analyze use case will follow. Next slide, please. So the geothermal energy pilot. Emerging alternative energy resources, including biomass, solar, wind, green hydrogen, and geothermal energy, will probably face a period of experimental growth in learning in other developed industry and balanced regulation and political comparable to a major industry, for example, oil and gas. As a proxy to this challenge, the pilot focused on the domain of geothermal energy, for which regulatory information is currently widely fragmented and for which most EU member countries will have ambitions to increase the use of geothermal energy. So in this use case, compliance information is being fragmented over multiple information sources. There are country-specific regulations, frameworks, which means a competitive disadvantage and limited international competition, and therefore the potential benefit of economics of scales and standardizations is necessary. Due to this fact, this area is quite new, the regulations and the conditions are changing continuously. The pilot demonstrates how a comprehensive legal taxonomy helps the user to find and select relevant regulatory documents. For this reason, a taxonomy has been created. Compliance documents have been collected from different data sources and annotated by this taxonomy. The user have the possibility to find similar documents to give users to a given user's document which they collected documents. This improves the accessibility and discoverability of data. To overcome the language barrier in this field, automatic machine translation is being used to translate all documents to English. Next slide, please. The pilot labor law focus on international companies' operations. In most of international companies, they are spread over they have geographic expansion and different workers' rights in their different locations. A common problem as the regulation in the different countries is different. Other large companies also have this issue, as for example, there are on a state level, there are also worker rights which differ even in one specific country. So as already stated, employment is widespread over many different sources, starting at the state level over national directives and regulations, collective agreements, up to the European level. The directives and regulations are also frequently amended. In addition, the document space is different per customer, as there are also workers' agreements. The pilot demonstrates how search and Q&A can help the user to find the correct answer to a legal question. For this reason, relevant documents have been loaded to the system, annotated and translated. The user can type in a question in natural language. Example, how long is a maternity leave for a nurse? A multilingual search is used to narrow down the relevant document space. The reduced document space is then used by the Q&A service to find the concrete answer. The users get the corresponding results per country. Next slide, please. The last pilot is contracting. Contracting is a common activity in companies, but managing contracting systematically, which means keeping track of changes or updates, is a cumbersome activity. In the course of this pilot, our goal is to have a reasonable strategies to automated contract analysis and contract archiving. We concentrate on the part of contract administration and management, not on the creation. Contracts and related information are spread over different systems. Example, file system, email, CRM, and so on. Due to this fact, they are also stored in different formats. Getting a quick overview over all contracts isn't easy. Contracts and their related information are most of the time organized in certain dimensions. For example, they are stored per customer or per type, for example, NDAs. Getting an overview in another dimension is most of the time not easy. Questions that are often asked: there is a change in law and you need to know which contracts are affected. An overview of all obligations with a certain company is needed. A contract is needed urgently and no one knows where to find the latest version because the responsible employee left the company a few days before. The pilot demonstrates the possibility to harvest documents from different data sources, for example, file system, and from different formats, PDFs, including scans, Microsoft Word, email, including attachments, keeping them up to date in the pilot. In addition, it's shown how external system can ingest contract-related information and documents to the system, for example, a CRM system. The harvested documents are enhanced by annotations. It demonstrates how annotations helps the user to find and discover relevant documents to certain questions. The so found documents can then be arranged in multiple dimensions without the need to duplicate the documents. If you want to know more about these pilots, please see our demonstration in January on the 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian, for these wonderful insights into our 3 pilots that have all to do with compliance, what is a very important topic because of internationalization, but also because of costs and because of being compliant to regulations and law. So we learned about geothermal energy with a focus on permits, about labor law use case, and about contract analysis and contracting use cases, the 3 pilots in Lynx. And you briefly explained what is inside, which data is inside, and which services a little bit are used. And now we will dig deeper into the LUSP, the Lynx Services platform, the Lynx Services platform services, and learn about what is available there, how can this be used. So you see a link there. You can also, this is publicly available. And my colleague Artem will now explain to us the services and the architecture of Lynx. Artem, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. Indeed, I'm going to speak about our solution as we prepare the Lynx service platform and what it contains in it. As Martin already mentioned, there is a link where you can find out more. The slides will be made available to you. You will get access to them, and then you will be able to click on this. In total, we have 16 different services, and we can group them in different categories. So first, there comes 7 enrichment services that enrich the documents that we get. Those contain 5 annotation and 2 conversion services. We also have 4 services for search and information retrieval. This is typically used as end user services because the end user might want to find some document, and as Christian explained in the pilots, it's all around finding and retrieving the necessary information. 2 services provide access to vocabulary data or vocabulary related activities, let's say. And 3 services are platform services, and I will give more information about each category in the next slides. Next, thank you. Good. Annotation services. As already mentioned earlier by Victor, we have this wonderful Lynx document format, and you will fall in love with it, in particular with its JSON version. What this Lynx document format and the underlying NLP interchange format are good for is for producing annotations inside the text. So here we have 5 different services that can produce, so they find some relevant piece of information in the text, and then they annotate it with some additional information, for example, the type of this entity, or some links to external sources. For example, temporal expression, this would identify expressions of time. These small cards for each services, this is exactly the way you would find it on the website, the link that you have seen on the previous slide. And in each card, you see some additional information. For example, on the right-hand side of each card, you see the different languages. So it means that the service is available in those languages. Most of our services are available in 4 target languages, that is English, Spanish, German, and Dutch. But there are some variations, and we are working on extending the portfolio of languages for each service. Good. The first symbol that is like an arrow that is in the target, that one would lead you to Swagger API description. So this is a really nice format that is also beloved by developers, that allow you to nicely and quickly debug your command to request the web APIs of those services. So the descriptions themselves, so that you can get impression of the service, are openly available, but in order to access the service and process some real data, you would need to be registered, so that that is managed by our authentication service. Good. So I will the other symbols, you can click on them. So the home symbol would lead you to the website of the service, and so on. And PDF is a nice description. The other services also produce annotations like named entity recognition, or external links, or for example, annotations of found relations in the text. Good. The next group of services, next slide, are conversion services. Those are represented by machine translation that would translate the whole document and is available in many language pairs, and summarization service that would summarize the whole document. That's why those are called conversion services. Next slide, please. The search and information retrieval services, as already mentioned, those are mostly used as end user services. Here you find, for example, question answering that would try to find the relevant document and the exact answer in that document, or the cross-lingual search service. Other examples are semantic similarity and queries to terminology. Next slide, please. Vocabulary services provide access to vocabularies, such as dictionary service that provides access to K-dictionary data, or they do some vocabulary-related tasks, like terminology extraction that would prepare a terminology from a given corpus. And finally, we have platform services. Those are the most important ones, in a sense, because they glue together the whole platform and make it possible for the other services to operate. So in a sense, they manage the services. For example, Workflow Manager that allows us to compose individual services into workflows that could solve particular tasks or provide particular types of annotations that are useful for the pilot or the use case. Document Manager, that one is very important. That one stores not only the individual documents with additional metadata about them, but also the annotations in those documents. So the result
Not sure, but I think we have lost Artem for the moment. So maybe I just jump in here and go ahead. Artem, you let us know. Maybe somebody else, can you help me? Can you hear me? but you cannot hear Artem, right?
It's the fact. Artem is gone.
Yes.
I will try to reconnect. So go
No
for it.
problem. So for the moment, I just go ahead. So the three platform services that Artem mentioned, the workflow manager, he explained, the document manager, and also very important, authentication and identity management. That is all about, as the name says, authentication, and that you have user management in place, because we also have documents and data that lie in a secure layer. So it's not possible just to provide anything or everything publicly available.
Thank you a lot, Martin. I think.
Okay, Artem, the floor is yours. I jump to the architecture and you go ahead.
Thank you a lot. Sorry for this inconvenience. And yeah, so, and this architecture slides shows you the whole platform and how all the services are composed, combined, distributed. So let's have a look at this yellowish area, Lisp service platform. There you can see on the left such a blue rectangle of enrichment services, and on the eastern side there are two arrows that exchange with Workflow Manager. What that means is that Workflow Manager composes different combinations of those enrichment services with different parameters as well into nice workflows that can, for example, first let's say link entities to external sources, find named entities, and then annotate relations on top of those found entities. And then the Workflow Manager would consume this data and put it into the Document Manager. Above the Document Manager, well, next to the Document Manager is Search Service, and above Search and Information Retrieval Services, so those ones that are typically used by the end users. And then on top of that, you can see the API gateway and the authentication management. This is the security layer that protects the platform and manages the identities of different users. You can also see on top there are three typical usage scenarios, like terminology extraction, end user, or document ingestion. And I will not have time to go over all of those scenarios, but if you would like to learn more, you have a link to the blog post at the bottom of the slide. Thanks a lot. Martin?
Yes, thank you very much, Artem. Good to have you back in our webinar. Thank you very much for the insights. So I think we have learned about the list of services of the Lynx Services platform, Lisp, and also about the architecture. And I also recommend, as Artem said, the reading here of the Medium article that we will provide you with the slides. So what we did today, and we're going to the final round or to the end of our webinar, is that we gave you an overview about the Lynx project, about the legal knowledge graph and knowledge graphs at all, and the three pilots that Christian told us all about, the real world scenarios regarding smart compliance services, and also the services and the technology behind and the architecture of Lisp. So you see, this is the list, or this is the outlook of the Lynx on the Lynx webinar series. So today we have our first webinar that gives an overall introduction, and hopefully it gave you a taste and it triggers your interest to join us in the coming webinars. So what do we have on the plate? We will go on the 14th of January, as Christian said before, 10:30 again in the morning. We will go into the three business use cases on top of the Lynx legal knowledge graph. So this will be a presentation, again, shield thermal energy, labor law, and contract management by the pilot partners themselves. So it will be presented, the first one DNVGL, second one Quatre Casas, and the third one by Saibli. And then this is more for an audience for sure. We will tell about the problem statements, the requirements, but also the business case and the business model behind how these problems and issues could and have been solved by Lisp. And what's the outlook? So what will happen with these pilots then also after the project duration? We will have then our third webinar on the 11th of February, and we will have two webinars on technology, because a lot of work has been done and we want to present and also present it to the audience. So the first one will be the overview of the Lynx Services platform. So this is more detail about architecture, about the platform services themselves. And then the fourth webinar, the 18th of February, just a week later in the morning again, will be about the services in detail. And here we'll have also our consortium members that have developed or that are the owners of the services. They will present their services then really in detail to the audience and also answer questions. And then finally in March, you learned from Elena, end of March, we have the end of the Lynx project. We'll have a final event. We call it Lynx Compliance Made Easy. There's the registration link also in the slides we will share with you afterwards. And this will be a longer event, a morning event, also with panel discussions and with breakout sessions where you really can also discuss directly your questions, your issues with the Lynx consortium and representatives, and we also will present what happens with Lynx and Lisp after the project is over. So one more reminder about questions. So you have a chat panel. If you want to push questions to the speakers of today's webinar, just feel free and write them also into our chat, and I will pick them and hand them over to the speaker. And I see slowly but surely there are questions coming in, and there's one question that I think is very good, maybe for Artyom. It says, how do you extend for other languages and other use cases? So what needs to be done, or is it possible to extend the Lisp platform also to other languages and use cases? Artyom.
Hi again. Yeah, thank you, Martin. Well, that's indeed a good question, and this is the question that we also tackled, let's say, ourselves in the preparation for the pilots that we already have. So we did collect some data, and we did some preparations like extraction and refinement of pilot-specific terminologies. Yeah. The good thing is that it's possible to use our Lynx services to do these tasks semi-automatically. So they help to extract terminology, they help to extend it, and so on. Some other steps might be needed to, for example, train a nice translation model, and so on. So to summarize all that, there is a need of some preparational effort, including the manual effort. However, it is efficiently, well, let's say, platform efficiently assists humans to quickly adapt to new tasks and possible languages.
Thank you very much. And also to clarify, the Lynx Services and Lynx Services platform is trained on the legal knowledge graph. So all the services at the moment are really focusing on let's say legal information and on law, but I think the services in principle, that's a follow-up question from me to you, Artyom. The services in principle are, I would say, domain independent, right? So in principle, they can also be trained to a different field like health or health information. Is that correct?
This is true. This is totally true, Martin. And some services do not even need a retraining, like entity linking, let's say. As soon as domain-specific terminology is prepared, it's ready to go. For some other services, like recognition of named entities, it would be necessary to design domain-specific classes.
All right. Thank you very much, Artyom. Yeah, because that's also good to know and nice for the use of the services. I see another question. I think it's a question that I would like to hand over to Victor. I think you mentioned it a little bit, but maybe you can summarize which ontologies and terminologies have been used for the legal knowledge graph.
Thanks for this very good question. We build mainly on NIF, which is an ontology and a data model to represent annotations in a text. Annotation is like saying, in this sentence, this word is referring to this person or to this company. Or this in order to represent this, there is an ontology that is called NIF, NLP interchange format, and also indeed on the ELI, the European Legislation Identifier. plus some others like Dublin Core for metadata, etc. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Victor. So maybe another question. Somebody has a question, just put it into the chat. We have a few minutes left, but yep, let's see. Oh, there's one. And this one, I think maybe I can do it together with Elena, but I can start. The question is a classical question. What happens after the project duration? So what happens with all these wonderful things? This is not the question. This is how I phrase it. After the project duration ends. So as innovation manager, I will start, and maybe Elena, you can also say a few words. So we are in innovation action. So we are working on a business plan. That means that the Lynx Services, we're working on pricing at the moment. We work on a business plan, what investment, which additional effort needs to be done after the project duration, and how can this Lynx Services platform then be operated, and who is interested to do it. We also had interesting talks with third parties outside of the consortium that already tested services. And the feedback was very positive so far, that these services are very useful for industry. What is the basis of our, I would say, market validation that we see these services are used and needed? And for sure, we have the 3 pilots that are interested to make use of the Lynx services. Elena, is there something you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very nice summary of what will probably happen. So ideally, if we could partner, right, with companies, third parties that would like to take advantage of some services of the platform, right? That would be great. So so that real transfer to the market happens. Yeah. So if there are any interested parties, that would be we welcome you to let us know.
Absolutely, that's a very good remark. So if you're interested, just get in touch. We can test services, or you can test services. We can do that together, that you see if services are useful. There are services that will be standalone, like entity linking or machine translation. And then as colleagues have presented, there's a workflow manager that can put services in a workflow, in a flow that they work together, and they can use, I would call them, vertical solutions. Wonderful. So I don't see questions coming in at the moment. So I think it's good to just close the webinar today. I would like to thank all participants and the audience to join today the Lynx webinar #1. Please take a look at our follow-up webinars, and we would be happy to welcome you also to this in January and February. And secondly, I would like to thank very much all of our speakers and presenters today. And stay healthy, stay safe these days. Thank you very much for joining. Have a great day. And open the floor to say goodbye to all our speakers. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great holidays. Bye-bye.